This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Hi, hard heat. Good afternoon. Welcome to the broadcast. Extreme heat warnings continue today for much of New York and Pennsylvania. When you factor in the humidity, it'll feel well over 100 out there today.
These are extremely dangerous conditions.
It's going to be suffocating.
It goes from kind of fun to be out in to almost unbearable.
NBC's Sam Brock says more than half the country right now is trapped under a massive heat dome.
This is just brutal. New York City, Boston, and Philadelphia, all of those major metropolitan cities have declared heat emergencies ahead of what is expected to be just a scorching next couple of days. Heat index is expected to top out at 110 degrees or maybe even higher.
It is air that you wear today, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, even Monday and Tuesday of next week will be icky and sticky. Upper 80s then. State police are telling us to remind you, never leave pets or young people alone in locked cars. They are death traps on days like today. Another socialist has emerged victorious in a Democratic primary. It happened last night in the state of Colorado.
We are winning from coast to coast, from every level of office. We are taking back our party and our country.
29-year-old congressional candidate Malat Quiros defeating a 15-term incumbent. GOP strategist Caroline Sunshine says Quiros rode the coattails of a certain mayor who was unheard of in politics just 1 year ago.
I remember saying there's this guy named Zoran Mamdani, and I think he's going to win, and I think we need to look out for him. And people would say, no, he's a socialist. He's never going to win. Okay, so here we are.
The district won by Malat Quiros last night covers deep blue Denver and means she is expected to win in November, too. 3 downstate New York socialists won their primary elections last week. The Republican Party is hosting a first-of-its-kind midterm convention this fall. It'll highlight what the White House calls the Great American Comeback. The GOP midterm convention set for September 9th and 10th in Dallas, Texas. President Trump wants Congress to put limits on birthright citizenship after the Supreme Court yesterday ruled against the White House on that key immigration issue. Here's Fox's Jared Halpern.
Well, calling the Supreme Court ruling reaffirming birthright citizenship too bad for the country, President Trump says it can be made up in Congress through legislation he will support.
But Emory University Law School professor Polly Price says Tuesday's ruling means there's nothing Congress can do about birthright citizenship.
Congress is now foreclosed, not just the president, but Congress as well. So that the only way to narrow birthright citizenship as practiced in the U.S. now, from this point forward, is amend the U.S. Constitution.
And that's not easy. Michelle Backus with the conservative group Citizens Alliance.
The issue of immigration is more pressing than ever. Look, this is frustrating for a lot of Americans. You see birth tourism going up, people coming into this country, giving birth, taking their children back to their countries, a lot of the time in China, raising them with the CCP values. Then they turn 18, they can come back to America, vote in our elections, and ultimately destroy democracy.
Also yesterday, the High Court ruled 6-3 that states can ban transgender athletes in girls' sports. There are 27 states in that boat. 21 other states, including New York and Pennsylvania, permit biological boys in female athletics. Here's constitutional scholar Mark Smith.
So really it turns into a states' right issue as to what states want to do. So if a state says it's perfectly fine for a transgender male to compete with females in sports, there's nothing that prevents that.
The Supreme Court next term will take up the thorny issue of gun control. ABC's Devin Dwyer.
They have announced that they will review the constitutionality of state bans on AR-15 semi-assault rifles. These are weapons that are prohibited in 10 states plus the District of Columbia. They've been used in some of the deadliest mass shootings in the United States, including Sandy Hook and Uvalde. So many children there killed with these weapons. states responding to that, trying to limit the sale and possession, but now the justices have indicated they're ready to decide whether, in fact, that's unconstitutional.
Other news this Wednesday afternoon, President Trump took the new Air Force One on its maiden voyage today. He flew to North Dakota for the dedication of the new Teddy Roosevelt Presidential Library. This $400 million modified Boeing 747 was gifted to the U.S. from Qatar last year. U.S. officials are in Qatar today discussing peace with Iran, except Iran isn't there. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner meeting with Pakistani officials and Qatari mediators. No direct talks with Iran are scheduled as of yet. Here's the BBC's Nick Harper.
So far, Iran is very much taking a hands-off approach and saying that it will not engage in direct negotiations, and that's why we've got the Qataris as the mediators in between. But of course, that in itself will slow up any real progress that they hope to achieve during these 60 days.
Team USA will play Bosnia and Herzegovina in the knockout round of the World Cup tonight. It's winner move on, loser goes home. Sports analyst Dan Dakich thinks having home field advantage will be huge for the Americans.
Sometimes you're at home and your team just gets going harder. And when you're on the road, it shrinks a little bit. So the home crowd is going to be important as well in all of this. This is not a gimme at all.
It is Team USA versus Bosnia-Herzegovina tonight. Kickoff from Santa Clara, 8 p.m. on Fox Sports. Speaking of sports, he's leaving Los Angeles. Talking about NBA legend LeBron James won't be playing next season with the Lakers. The 41-year-old James has played for 3 different teams in his 23 seasons in the league. Still to come on the Noon Report, a midweek edition. Late state budget, fuel efficiency tips, and triple-digit threat.
Good afternoon. I am Kevin Williams. You're sweating it out today with soaring temperatures, high dew points, sun. Also, the risk of a thunderstorm for some. Forecast totals are up in 10.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you then. In the meantime, cooling centers have set up shop all across the listening area so folks can beat the heat during this great American bake-off. Pete Sacchetti with the New York State Office of Emergency Management.
We have reached out to all of our county partners in coordination with State Department of Health to make sure cooling centers are active and all of the information about them is updated. The State Department of Health does maintain a statewide website that gives you information about cooling centers in your neighborhood.
You can find a cooling center near you by going to health.ny.gov. That's health.ny.gov. It stays uncommonly hot right through the Independence Day weekend. For the 5th year in a row, Pennsylvania politicians have missed the deadline for an on-time state budget. The spending plan bogged down this year over issues like recreational marijuana, skill games, and the ongoing debate over the minimum wage. House Democrat Jordan Harris.
And so today I ask my Senate Republican colleagues, when it comes to the minimum wage, show me what you got. Because the people of Pennsylvania have waited long enough.
Republicans argue raising the wage would hurt the very people it's intended to help because it would force companies to lay off workers and raise prices. It's been 20 years since Pennsylvania's hiked the minimum wage, which currently stands at $7.25 an hour in the Commonwealth. A federal appeals court has sided with the state of New York when it comes to a controversial all-electric building code. Here's Family Life's Sarah Harnish.
The All-Electric Buildings Act was tucked in the state budget in 2023 and would ban gas hookups in new buildings under 7 stories and all other buildings built after January 1st, 2029. The measure was scheduled to go into effect this year, but the state agreed to delay its implementation until after the court ruled on it. The law has faced criticism over increased construction costs at a time of already limited affordable housing and the potential strain on a future electric grid. Sarah Harnish, Family Life News.
Thank you, Sarah. Central Pennsylvania Congressman Scott Perry does not want voters to elect their U.S. senators. He wants lawmakers to do that. The conservative Republican sponsoring a bill that would repeal the 17th Amendment, which in 1913 gave voters the power to elect their senators. Before that, it was the job of elected state legislators. AAA out today with some tips on how to get you more bang for your your gasoline buck this holiday weekend. Spokeswoman Valerie Puma says it starts by having properly inflated tires and going the speed limit. She suggests you set your car on cruise control. And here are more helpful tips.
Mapping out your route before leaving. Avoid backtracking, adding those unnecessary miles to your trip. Even those small detours can really add up pretty quickly when these gas prices are so high.
Also, says Puma, lighten the load if you can.
Removing those unnecessary items from your trunk or cargo area can make a noticeable difference.
A record 72.2 million Americans will be traveling at least 50 miles from home this 4th of July weekend. An Irondequoit, New York woman is in serious trouble today after being accused of trying to support a terrorist group. Prosecutors say 37-year-old Catherine Washburn sent more than $30,000 in cryptocurrency to someone claiming to be a fighter for Palestine Islamic Jihad in Gaza. The federal government has designated that group as a foreign terrorist organization. It's a sad end in the search for a missing child in New York's Capital District. The 7-year-old boy found dead in a neighbor's pool just 2 houses down from where he disappeared in the village of Menands earlier this week. Mayor Brian Marsh.
This has been taxing emotionally on everyone, and we are just so sorry about the outcome.
The child had autism and was nonverbal. He disappeared Sunday afternoon after wandering off from a family gathering. That boy was found early Tuesday. Menands, by the way, is about 4 miles north of Albany. The city of Buffalo will not be hosting a 4th of July fireworks show this weekend. That decision by Mayor Sean Ryan displeases many in the Queen City, especially since this weekend is America's 250th birthday bash. Local restaurateur Russ Salvatore will be sponsoring a fireworks show at Patriots and Heroes Memorial Park instead. The all clear has been given in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, just outside Philadelphia. A train derailment Tuesday triggered a mass evacuation order. 16 cars left the track.
2 were carrying hazmat materials, but thankfully they were not leaking. At this time, it is deemed safe. There's no threat to public safety.
Bensalem Public Safety Director William McVeigh. Trey Gale lives near the tracks where the derailment happened. He spoke to Fox 29 in Philly.
Cops came and knocked on our door and said we got to evacuate because chemicals, spilled and we don't want it to blow up, they said so.
When police come to your door and say that, what goes on to your mind at
I'm
that
like,
time?
we got to go because I got kids.
How thankful are you that it wasn't as serious as it could have been?
Super thankful because they say it can blow up, so we're right there. Super thankful.
The train derailment cleanup effort is likely to take several days. Micron is making a financial investment in the children of Central New York. That computer chip company says it will make a one-time deposit of $250 into a retirement fund for anyone under 18 in Oswego, Cortland, Madison, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Cortland counties. Parents can visit Micron's website to receive emails about this program and find out how to get those deposits. Micron is currently in the process of building a massive semiconductor facility in the town of Clay. Sports is next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, they didn't waste any time in the NBA. Day 1 of the free agency produced a seismic trade as the Toronto Raptors have reacquired Kawhi Leonard from the LA Clippers in exchange for a package including Brandon Ingram and several first-round picks. Rumors are flying that LeBron James is going to join Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors, but nothing official about that yet. We do know LeBron will not be returning to the Lakers next season. Staying in Toronto, only switching sports, the Mets shut out the Blue Jays 3-0. Nolan McLean spun 6 scoreless innings and struck out 7. Francisco Alvarez and Luis Torrens both hit home runs to help New York even up their series. The Tigers put it to the Yankees for the second straight day, 9-3 the final. Tarek Skubal gave up 1 earned run on just 1 hit over 6 innings. Riley Green, he left the yard twice in the rout for Detroit. In Philadelphia, Christopher Sanchez became the first pitcher in the Bigs to reach 10 wins this season. He shut down Pittsburgh, allowing 3 hits and no runs over 7 innings. He struck out 9. Trey Turner, 2 hits, 1 a home run. He drove in 3 in the victory. Also picking up wins, the White Sox, Rangers, Rays, Astros, Mariners, Cardinals, Brewers, Cubs, Marlins, D-backs, Nationals, and Dodgers. And in World Cup soccer action, the favorites all advanced yesterday. Norway, France, and Mexico. France especially looking very, very good. The United States play tonight at 8 o'clock. They take on Bosnia. Win, they move on. Lose, they go home. That is a look at sports.
That's how it works in the knockout round. Thank you, Randy. Still to come on the Noon Report for a Wednesday. Socialism in the Mile High City. High, hard heat for your holiday weekend and how to cope with church hurt.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. As the U.S. approaches its 250th anniversary, there's another milestone that should also be remembered. On July the 1st, 1997, after 100 years as a British colony, Hong Kong was handed over to the People's Republic of China. Part of the agreement, Hong Kong was to remain one country, two systems for 50 years, remaining a capitalist center in an otherwise communist nation. Hong Kong has also become a hub of Christianity, a place where many ministry workers have been trained and theologically equipped and then sent into the mainland. Today, however, 29 years after that handover, the future of the church and of religious liberty in Hong Kong is far from clear. While many Hong Kongers hope to hold on to these freedoms and retain some degree of independence until 2047, others are far more apprehensive, believing that Hong Kong will more likely be assimilated into the mainland politically, legally, and ideologically. After all, as early as 2014, the Chinese Communist Party interfered with Hong Kong elections, screening out candidates they deemed to be disloyal to China and contradicting the whole spirit of one country, two systems. They then cracked down heavily on the umbrella protest, arresting and deporting many leaders. Then in 2020, the Chinese Communist Party enacted the National Security Law, effectively granting the Chinese government more control over Hong Kong under the pretext of safeguarding national security. In reality, this just gave carte blanche authority for the CCP to persecute anyone deemed to be a threat to the party. Now even ministry workers can conveniently be framed as colluding with foreign entities. In fact, it is impossible for the power of the Chinese state to grow as it is within Hong Kong without Christians appearing to be more and more of a threat. First, Christianity is completely incompatible in a moral sense. As former Cardinal Joseph Zen put it, Christianity is a rejection of, quote, the whole culture which is now reigning in China, a culture of falsity, of dishonesty, a lack of spiritual values, end quote. Second, and more importantly, Christianity is incompatible with communism in its view of reality itself, and especially who is in charge over reality. To call this a conflict of interest for Christians in Hong Kong is quite an understatement. Already, in response to the national security law, there's been a mass exodus of young professionals and ministry workers from Hong Kong. As a result, many churches there lack sufficient volunteers and sustainable financial support. Some smaller churches have been forced to merge to avoid closing, while some larger multi-site churches have been forced to close campuses after losing too many congregates. Of course, what's always been true about the church's existence and flourishing remains true for Christians there in Hong Kong. Our hope's never dependent on who's sitting on an earthly throne. The risen Christ is the Lord over all creation, and he's called his people to that specific time and place in history, to that specific moment within God's grand story of redemption. At the same time, like he has throughout history in times of increasing cultural pressures, God sovereignly uses situations like in Hong Kong to send his people to other places around the world. In addition to reminding us of the plight of Christians back in Hong Kong, these people will take the church forward to other places, serving as businessmen and attorneys and fathers and mothers and computer engineers and leaders and other things who hold fast to Christ and live under his lordship in a new time and place. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
Thank you, John. Outside we go next. It's weather where you live with meteorologist Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life forecast. Our call for this afternoon, hot and steamy. We'll have a fair amount of sunshine, but watch for a thunderstorm. The focus would be central New York or northeast Pennsylvania. High temperatures, most areas into the 90s, dropping back into the 70s tonight. Intensely hot, humid tomorrow with sunshine prevailing. High temps in the 90s to near 100. And then on Friday, it's hot, humid with some sunshine. A couple of scattered thunderstorms around, especially in the afternoon. High temperatures Friday, upper 80s and 90s.
All right, thank you, Kevin. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price, and here's what's happening Wednesday, the first day of July. We'll start where Kevin left off with the weather. Real field conditions will exceed 100 degrees for the next several days. Record-breaking temperatures are possible as a major heat dome hovers and smothers right through the Independence Day weekend.
If you do not have air conditioning, keep your shades drawn and blinds closed.
Good advice there. Emergency officials also say stay out of the sun during the hottest part of the day.
Just pay attention to your body. Don't push yourself because it can get dangerous.
New York Health Commissioner Dr. James McDonald says it doesn't take long for heat stroke to set in on days like this.
When you start seeing signs, if your body is speaking to you, you need to listen. So if you find yourself sweating profusely, feeling a little lightheaded, get into an air-conditioned space, and you really should have fluid with you at all times if you're outside.
It is air that you wear today, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Even Monday and Tuesday of next week will be icky and sticky. Upper 80s then. State police are telling us to remind you, never leave pets or young people alone in cars. Those are death traps on days like today. Another socialist candidate won a Democratic primary last night. 29-year-old Malak Qiros defeating a 15-term incumbent in Colorado, far-left podcaster Hassan Piker.
Left populism can work in every district, in every state. That's why I kept saying over and over again, it's coming to a city near you.
Tom Del Vaccaro with Politics in Perspective.
I'm not saying it's going to be accepted in Indiana tomorrow, but it is a warning sign for the Democrats today as a party. The country sees it on the horizon.
Last week, 3 socialist candidates won their Democratic primaries in the New York City area. Search and rescue teams still combing through the rubble in Venezuela, where last week's twin earthquakes killed nearly 2,000 people. Tens of thousands more remain missing. The UN is seeking $15 million to set up temporary shelters for those left homeless by the quakes. The Trump administration calling on Congress to ban birthright citizenship after the Supreme Court ruled yesterday against the White House on that key immigration issue.
We have to be even more aware of who's coming into our country to make sure that they're not benefiting from this atrocious Supreme Court ruling.
Vice President J.D. Vance reacting to the ruling, which rejects the administration's efforts to end birthright citizenship that guarantees citizenship to children who are born in this country, regardless of the immigration status of their parents. More reaction as well to the High Court 6-3 decision on protecting girls' sports. The justices Tuesday left intact state laws that ban transgender athletes from female athletics. Peyton McNabb with the Independent Women's Forum.
There's a lot of eyes on this. Across the country, there's families, there's parents, and there's coaches and daughters who are watching this decision being made. And I'm just so thankful that they get to understand that they are protected.
There are 27 states that ban transgender athletes in female sports. 21 states allow biological boys to compete against girls. Those states include New York and Pennsylvania, and they will be allowed to continue those controversial policies. The Supreme Court yesterday did not issue an outright nationwide ban. President Trump made over $2 billion last year. Much of it came in the form of cryptocurrency. In addition to the crypto ventures, the commander-in-chief reported $620 million in real estate, hotel, and golf-related income. The president, by the way, does not collect a salary as president. Village People frontman Victor Willis is dead at the age of 74.
It's fun to stay at the YMCA.
The singer helped catapult the 1970s disco group that won fame with hits like YMCA and Macho Man. Willis's cause of death not disclosed, but his family claims it was a short and aggressive illness. The Ford Motor Company recalling 740,000 vehicles is because of park system issues, which can cause the vehicle to roll away. That's never good. The recalls for Ford Expedition, Explorer, F-150 pickups, Lincoln Aviator, and Lincoln Navigators made between 2018 and 2021. All the affected vehicle owners will get a notification in the mail. You're listening to the Noon Report, a midweek edition on Family Life.
Today on Family Life's Inside Out, we're talking about church hurt and what comes after. I'm Martha Manikas Foster, and my guest is counseling pastor and author Timothy St. John, whose new book is titled After Church Hurt. Tim, would you describe church hurt and how some churches in some places are so broken or leaders are so unrepentant that they hurt the people that they are intended to serve?
That's such an important question. So the way I define church hurt in the book is any unrepentant sin that is minimized, normalized, or promoted by a church culture and its leadership. And I say church culture and its leadership because if either of those, the leader or the church body, was willing to address the wrong, there could be a path of healing within the church. Mm-hmm. Right? Someone could say, hey, this happened to me. I can raise my hand and I can get help, and there can be a way forward. But what's so unique, I think, about church hurt is when people are sinned against, and that sin, it is normalized, it's protected. Mm-hmm. People say, oh, that's just his personality. Rather than actually saying, that is wrong, and Scripture says it's wrong, let's address it. It's minimized. In those kinds of settings, it's like you can't go to that next step in Matthew 18. There's no one to bring with you. And so there's these layers and these waves of pain that come, not only from the direct wound from being sinned against, but the fact that it's not addressed. And in the end, you end up really losing your community, and you're in a place of honestly deep despair and confusion.
What have you seen as the ramifications when the hurt or abuse in a person's life comes from a place, intended to be a pathway of God's grace? What are the ways that God becomes distorted for the person who's been hurt?
Whenever sin is committed in an unrepentant way in a spiritual environment, like a pathway of grace has turned into a pathway of pain and harm, then all sorts of painful emotions come up. Confusion, anger, grief, despair. Mm-hmm. Shame would be another one, a major one, anxiety. Mm-hmm. So what can often happen is people become not only angry at the person who wronged them in the way that they were allowed to sin against them, but that person, let's say it's a pastor, that pastor is really like an ambassador from a country. Mm-hmm. And so I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, is this what this country is like? Mm-hmm. And Paul writes, we are ambassadors for Christ. And so if you have a community of people who are supposed to be ambassadors for Christ, all kind of protecting sin and silencing you or blaming you, and the pastor is doing it too, it can really feel like, wait, who is God really? People are not just watching our teaching, they're watching how we live our lives, how we conduct ourselves. Mm-hmm. And they're assuming that this is what life looks like when it's following Christ. And so it's very disorienting. I could begin to talk about the path of healing, but it really is going to have to start in some way with someone who does represent Christ well, coming alongside that person and showing them, embodying the love of Christ, the heart of Christ. It's going to involve someone really who can reverse the impression over time, slowly, give them a new impression of this is who Christ truly is. I can give you a dynamic where you are honored and where your feet are washed and where you are loved.
So a better ambassador.
Yes, a true ambassador.
Yeah. You've alluded to it already. Timothy, what can healthy churches and their ministries do to help people who've been hurt by the church?
If we want our churches to be places of healing from church hurt, healing never starts with moving on and minimizing. It starts with telling the truth about what happened. But that takes time, and we don't want to rush. We don't want to pressure people. I think if churches can just be really slow in how we ask questions and really just being more interested in how can I serve and love this person? How can I listen to them? How can I patiently walk with them? Are there like simple prayer requests we can lift?
So what do you see as the key characteristics of a healthy church so that churches can evaluate themselves and maybe make a course correction?
Yeah, I think this is really important. Healthy churches, as you're evaluating them, see the character, see the heart of these pastors and the members. Do you see humility? Do you see a desire to be prayed for? I have burdens and I need people to bear those burdens. Or do you see people who just kind of keep others at arm's length, not really feeling ever like they can go deeper or share their hearts or burdens with others? So there would be some just simple questions to evaluate a healthy church.
Good stuff. Christian counselor and pastor Timothy St. John for this week's edition of Inside Out with Martha Menikis Foster. And finally at noon for a Wednesday, that's one big baby born recently in Western New York. West Seneca mom giving birth to the largest baby ever born at Golisano Children's Hospital.
She had a fan club from day one. She just brought a little bit of magic to labor and delivery that day.
Sure did. Both mom and dad say they could not believe it when the doctor told them their baby daughter tipped the scales at 14 pounds.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, what?
Yeah.
What did she just say?
I could not believe the amount of human that came out of another human.
How about that? Not so little, Yamaya Soto Rodriguez came into this world June 9th weighing 14 pounds. Yeah, you heard it correctly. She was delivered by C-section, thank God, and left the hospital wearing clothes normally worn by a 6-month-old.
People can't believe it. Like when we're out, they're like, oh my God, your baby's so cute. How old is she? And I was like, she's like 2 weeks. And they're like, what?
Births of babies that big are extremely rare, accounting for less than 1 out of every 1,000 deliveries, according to the CDC. And both mom and baby in this case are doing just fine. And that's our world, the world we live in. Wednesday, the first day of July. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.